Good morning, everybody. I'm Claire Delongeau, the event director of Museum Connection. I'm very happy to welcome you all for this Museum Connection Inspiration Conference. As you may know, we were forced to postpone twice Museum Connection this year, and the second date was May. We should have met in person this week in Paris. Together with Diane Rubet from We Are Museum, we had prepared a full conference program for this week. Today's online meeting is the way we have found to propose you this conference program. We will hold 4 online conferences in English till November. Today's Inspiration Conference will feature on new hybrids relationships shaped in museum, interaction through emotion or intelligence. I would like to warmly thank Stéphan FAUDEUX from Sonovision for coordinating this conference, and Tony Gillian at the Coventry City of Culture Trust in the UK, Camilla THOMAS at the Imperial War Museum in the UK, and Dr. Johannes BERNHARDT at the Baden State Museum in Germany for being with us today to share their experience. Before handing over to Stéphan, I wish all museum and cultural venues a very good reopening. And let's start the debate.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me loud and clearly. So just a few seconds to introduce myself. I'm the editor and publisher of Sonovision magazine. So we deal with issue of technological innovation in several sectors that use audiovisual, communication, entertainment, education, and subject of museum and exhibition occupy a large part of our editorial. So we have a print magazine, a website, a newsletter with more than 25,000 subscribers, and our readers are mostly in France and French-speaking countries. So the topic, the first webinar this morning, it's you have the title of this conference. It's Interaction for Emotion or Intelligence. New hybrids relationship are being shaped by museum. So we will push this definition of interaction in museum to discover some new form of relationships between human and machine, emotional and intelligence, virtual or sensory, educational or playful. I think the collection are revamped to become some agents of change and transformation. So this word also hybrid with that pandemic, I think, are the Star Wars of 2020 and 2021. In the Greek mythology, there are many hybrid monsters, half man or half woman, half animals, like the Gorgon, the Minotaur, Cyclops, mermaid. This monster is very scary, and I think it's not the point of this conference, I hope. So more and more of our organization are hybrid because we associate real and virtual, local and everywhere. So this conference evokes the idea of this duality, an association between intelligence and emotion. Is it possible? Can we also talk about gamification, entertainment, and how a great cause can resonate with an audience? So how to imagine a journey capable of mixing, reconciling emotion, intelligence, and technology as a link. So to debate with great people, 3 great guests who will able to present their work and their vision of this subject. So we'll start with Camilla THOMAS. She's an executive producer for youth and adult program at the Imperial War Museum. And Camilla, in your museum, you have an interesting project. You've got an exhibition about refugee, and there's some interactive experience with artificial intelligence who manage this border. Could you explain the mechanism and the purpose of this exhibition?
Thank you. Yes, hello everybody. So at Imperial War Museum, what we're trying to do is to help our audiences connect with and understand the human impact of war and conflict. And sometimes that is best achieved through very analog means like public discussion forums, but at times we have used technology like AI, but either in the case of the current installation of Face to Open Doors, which you referred to, which is part of our current refugee season and was created by the artist Anagram. Either in that instance, the AI itself is actually the subject of the artwork, or more likely and more usually, we're using those kinds of technologies because the technology itself is just one of many tools that we use to help to connect our audiences with this human impact of war and conflict and to help to drive their understanding of it. So I can tell you a little bit more about a Face to Open Doors, because in this case, the AI is really part of the subject of the piece, and referring to what you said in your introduction about these stories and myths dating back to Greek mythology about these mixtures of human and automaton or machine. There is something in a Face to Open Doors as an experience that does tap into some of our mistrust of some of these technologies. So in the experience itself, what you do is you approach this dilapidated neon-clad booth, which is a relic from the future. It's a mobile border control created by a fictional company called True Face. And your hand is scanned to start your application because in the story world of the piece, you want to leave the place that you are in because you feel unsafe. And you then enter the booth and meet this AI border guard through a screen. And via that screen, the border guard tells you to sit while it calibrates, because it's scanning your face, and it explains, our system creates your own automated personality profile without the need for endless layers of expensive bureaucracy. So you know that your face is being scanned, and you discover that your micro gestures will be read, your personality profile created from that information, and an algorithm is going to decide if your application is successful or not. And the AI border guard prompts you to respond to images and suggestions on screen while it scans these micro gestures to build your profile. And then your verdict is delivered, and you're told that you were either accepted for relocation or not. Being rejected, possibly for displaying too little emotion and seeming to be hiding something, too much emotion, in which case you're judged to be manipulative, or a mixture of emotions that show that you're inconsistent and therefore untrustworthy, or more rarely, you're accepted because you show just the right amount of emotion. In fact, the results are randomized, and roughly 1 in 3 people will be told that they're successful. And the reasons and process for deciding your fate are quite obscure. What did you do right or wrong? it's not clear, even though the AI has told you that it's reading your face. You're not really sure what you did right or wrong, or how you elicited this response. And on leaving the booth with this newly delivered verdict, you find out through the text panels on the walls that actually these technologies, although we've set them in this future world in this piece, have real life and contemporary application through trials, both in 2014 in trials in the US-Mexican border, and more recently in 2019 through an EU-funded trial in a project called Border Control. But in this piece, and you can see that the use of AI is intrinsically linked to the message of the artwork. It's part of the subject of the piece, and the apparent novelty of the AI is placed in a really sharp focus by the reference in those display panels to those real life trials. And I want to share something that Anagram, the artist who created this piece, said about it. And they said, in this piece, you have to perform your emotions while faced with your own reflection. Although playful at first, it can be uncomfortable to be judged by a machine. We design work that invites participation so that people can reflect on what it brings up for them. These feelings can be the beginning of a new conversation. And so even though the experience refers in its subject to AI, and you are genuinely interacting with an AI through the experience, really it's those human connections on an intellectual and emotional level that is the kind of response and consequence that the artists are looking for and that we're interested in as well. If there's time, I'll tell you about another recent piece which also used a similar technology to a slightly different end. So in 2019, with partners Future Everything, we commissioned Yemen Say Hello to Connect as part of our then season looking at the crisis in Yemen. And in that piece itself, the AI in the artwork created a unique digital image based on every interaction by matching words in participants' verbal responses to thought cues to preloaded images. For example, the word water would be attached to an image of a water container, and a composite image would be made from the speech. And I remember one of the vox pops from a person who interacted with it, mentioning that what they valued about the experience was that it was about emotion and not just facts. And it was interesting as a museum, when people come often to museums with an expectation of learning about facts, and we are often seen as the people who hold the fact and the truth of things, that actually what people were valuing was the emotional connection they were making through this. But through that use of AI, it was about how that technology as a tool reflected the intellectual and emotional uniqueness of each participant's interaction with the subject matter and with the content of that piece. So again, it was only really a tool for something that's much more nuanced and human and particular to each person. So I propose really that these technologies are fantastic as a part of a wider toolkit. And of course, sometimes they can become the subject itself.
Just a quick question, Camilla. Did the visitor was able to give their opinion, their feedback at the end of the experience?
Do you refer to a face to open doors?
Yeah.
No, is the short answer. So because their interaction with the AI border guard ends at the point that they have received the the judgment that it has made based on their microfacial gestures. There is no recourse or opportunity to respond. In fact, in the staging of the piece, which is one of the things that was so brilliantly executed by the artist Anna Graham, there is a phone receiver in the booth that says that you can call for assistance or complaints, but it's like the dilapidated structure at large. It's not working. It is out of service and taped up. So that was their part of their effort, I think, to actually feed on the disempowering sense of having that agency taken away from you, and particularly in this time of extreme need. So no, you can't, but that was a very deliberate choice.
Okay, thanks. If you have some question, you can use the chat box for general question, and also at the end of this session, it will be possible to ask to our speaker some question you have in a private chat room, private Zoom room. So thanks, Camilla. Johannes, Dr. Johannes Bernhardt, you are digital manager at Baden State Museum. So your museum takes place in a beautiful and historic building outside, but inside it's totally different. And you want your visitor to be actor and to interact with the exhibition and also to be curators. Is it correct?
Yes, it is. May I share my screen now? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, just a second. I have some slides. So, is it working? Can everybody see my slides?
Okay, yeah.
All right, enlarge it a little bit. Yes, you already mentioned one of the most important points. When you saw my personal video stream in the background, you can see Karlsruhe Palace, where the museum, the main museum, is placed, and it's an historical building that will be completely renovated within the next years. So that gave us the possibility, the rare possibility, to rethink the museum completely, and we did. So what we were doing was to develop a new museum concept, and the core of it is what Stéphan already mentioned, that the visitors should become active users of the museums and even co-creators of the museum. And we are pursuing this approach in many directions at the moment. I can only present here a small sample, but I thought for starters, I show you an image of our pilot exhibition that presents archaeological objects from the Baden region in southern Germany. And it has actually more elements than shown here, but this is the main part. We call it the expothek, and it's really different from a usual exhibition space, because there are a lot of objects on a small in a small space, 1,500. And in the background, we have a lot of digital infrastructure, digital catalog, a user ID that works like a library card. And so what you can do is you can interact with augmented reality directly with the objects in the showcases, or you can order online an object. And then a person that is always present in this exhibition, we call them explainers, will take out the object from the showcase and present it to you. Yeah, without glasses and anything, and if it is possible, and if it is possible, even to take it into your own hands, you can do it. So you can have, for example, you can hold a Celtic sword, or a prehistoric object in your own hands and research it and discover it on your own. So that is the central idea that we are using at the moment, a lot of digital infrastructure to build new accesses, to enable new accesses to our collections. And this will be one of the central pieces for the remaking of the whole museum. But when we started to build a digital catalog with thousands of object data sets, we thought, okay, if the visitors should become users of the museums, we involve them in the process of the remaking of the museum. And so we started a lot of participation projects. So we established a citizen council of around 50 members, and we did a lot of design thinking workshops where the central idea was that the citizen councils themselves develop concepts and we guide them through the process of design thinking to come up with prototypes and ideas and concepts. And they did. We have dozens of crazy and most interesting concepts and prototypes now. We did museum camps. We did hackathons where we presented hackers all the ideas and needs of our citizen councils and participatory processes, and they came up with concrete concrete prototypes, functional prototypes you could use. The result of this process was that we realized some of these concepts, and I will present you, as I said, only a sample of what we did. So the first thing was that we realized two apps that work, in fact, complementary, and they address the question of emotional accesses to our collections, both. So on the left side, you see the app called Dein Geschenk in German, or Your Gift, and it's actually a prototype that was developed by a British artist collective, Blast Theory, and we adapted it and developed it further. It enables the user to go with this app through the collections, take photos, and record audio messages, and then the app creates a gift package, and you can send it to a dear person. Yeah, so it's a very personal, a very intimate access to the collections. So you can use memories, shared emotions with a close person, and things like that, and create your own content. And now we developed it a little bit further, so you can make also public gifts, and we have a gift shop where you can choose public gifts and try them. And the other app we developed that works complementary is a really interesting one, because it picks up a need and concepts of our citizen council, how we could bring objects to speak and to be a conversational partners. And so what we are doing, this is the image on the right side, is we implemented an app that works like Tinder for objects, yeah, like the dating app. So you see that's the left screen, the free screenshot thing, the left one. You swipe left or right through the collections and images of objects, and they have a small slogan. And if you find them, one you find interesting and it matches to your profile, this is the middle screen, you got a match, and then starts a dialogue. And the dialogue is completely scripted and based on a persona we developed for the object. So for example, you have here a Roman tombstone, yeah, and this is more or less a drill sergeant who has all the time orders for you, attention and things like that. We have melancholic objects, we have angry objects, we have funny objects. So it's all around personalities for the, all about personalities of the objects and bringing them to life. And it's really interesting because you can put a lot of information and content into these dialogues. Some of them are really long and really complex and have different strands of conversation. But what we can see in testings is that people remember everything when they interacted in this way with the objects. So, and there's a lot of gaming mechanics involved here. I can maybe say a word or two later in the discussion about this, because Stéphan mentioned also gamification. It's actually full of gamification approaches. So the second thing I want to present, my third slide, is that starting from the processes of our participation project, it became clear very soon that artificial intelligence would be a great way to address a lot of the needs of our citizens. So I think that is what this graphic wants to show. I think that in the future, yeah, it will be a big part of museum and cultural work that we have content data and more knowledge about user data, and we'll use artificial intelligence systems, yeah, to bring these two data sets into conversation, yeah, to create personalized content or to enable the users to generate their own content, yeah. So they can become their own curators and can do stuff with our collections. And this is the central idea of a pretty large research project we are starting at the moment in cooperation with the Anna Pearson Museum in Amsterdam. And the central idea is, in accordance with our new museum concept, that we redefine the visitors as active users, that we give AI systems as assistants to our users, not to the curators, but to our users. So they get assistance if they are browsing our online collections or things like that. So they can use this tool, the X-Curator it's called at the moment, to get recommendations, additional material, or can have collections of objects put into a simple form of storytelling and in a simple form of framing. So maybe I stop at that point because my time is up, I think. So we are using at the moment, starting from the concept, the rethinking of the museum, a lot of participation work to implement emotional and intelligent approaches to our collections.
Thanks, Johannes. And do you know if your visitors, users, curator use the apps at home outside the museum?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So the first app, Your Gift, we implemented as a kind of rapid response last summer to the situation of Corona, because when the museum was open for a while, visitors could only access it as single persons. And so we thought, oh, it's really interesting if they have this app, the Gift app, so they can share their experience. And the numbers of usage of that thing that can be used in the museum and outside of the museum were astounding, absolutely astounding. It was used heavily. And the other app, the Ping app, where you can have this Tinder conversations with objects, is actually designed to start outside of the museum. So you can sit at home, for example, browse through the collection, find objects that are interesting, the dialogue starts, and that then at some point, if you behave in a fair way to the object and don't insult it, for example, it invites you to visit it in the museum. So, and then you go to the museum to have to find it. And if you have found it, you can have the further and main dialogue that uses the actual object and says, take a closer look at this point or that, or things like that. So we are using all the time this before the museum visit, in the museum situation, and afterwards a situation to have a more complete user journey and visitor journey.
Great, so interesting. Thanks for his presentation. So now Tony GUILLAN is Curator and Digital Arts and XR at the Coventry City of Culture Trusts. So Tony, perhaps you could present the Coventry City Culture and your mission in first.
Sure, I'm just going to share my screen. So, hello everyone, I'm Tony Gillan, Digital Curator for Coventry City of Culture Trust. Coventry is the UK City of Culture this year. We started last Saturday and we run for the next 365 days into May 2022. As you can imagine, it's been a very long road trying to organise a year-long 365 festival of art and culture right across a major city during a pandemic. It's been a challenge, but it's finally here and we're really excited to share it with the people of Coventry, the country and the world. The UK City of Culture programme is now in its third edition, the first being in 2014 in Derry, Londonderry, then in 2017 in Hull in the north of England, and then Coventry this year. And obviously that takes inspiration from the original European Capitals of Culture programme. So I'm kind of the odd one out on this panel. I don't work in a museum, in a building, although I've spent most of my career in museums this far, first at the Tate and then with Camilla at the Imperial War Museums. So we don't have a collection or a specific subject matter, if you like, unlike working in museums. Our subject matter is the city of Coventry and its people and its culture, the living, breathing culture, and our objectives are social. Oh, how do I? Bit of a problem there. Can you all still hear me?
Yes, we hear you, but
So Coventry, there's Coventry. It's in the heart of England. It's an hour away from London, 20 minutes from Birmingham. It's sandwiched between those two giant cities in the UK. It's about 400,000 people, incredibly diverse, one of the most diverse, culturally diverse cities in the UK, with over 100 languages spoken in its schools. And it's one of the youngest cities in the UK, with an average age of about 34, when the UK average is about 42, I believe. So it's a really interesting and diverse place to explore culture. And our mission, as I say, we're not a museum, is a social one. Unusually for an arts programme, we framed our whole objectives around our theory of change, we call it, this logic model, which is all about these 20 outcomes we want to achieve through art and culture for the city. Everything from increased subjective and emotional impacts, our outcomes like increasing civic pride, right through to engaging all of our citizens and communities in the future of the city. It's about civic and social change, as well as economic and transformational long-term impacts that we hope to create by welcoming many visitors to engage with our culture. And my specific role as digital curator, digital arts and immersive, is specifically on exploring the role of new technologies. So that one outcome, the city makes and develops creative, cultural and civic uses of 5G and immersive tech, which is an unusual brief. I think Camilla put it perfectly when she said, sometimes technologies are the subject and sometimes they're just a means to create the content and make the content as good as it can be, or to reach audiences as best they can. And technologies could be anything from the emergence of theatre, the Magic Lantern show, right through to some of these most swizzy things. So this is my mantra. What does it mean to focus on immersive technologies like VR, AR, AI in the context of City of Culture? Well, this is my mantra. Digital technology is expanding who can create and consume art and culture. It's changing how and crucially where audiences can engage, encounter and experience art and culture. And this is changing what we can create and why. So I thought I'd share 3 projects that we've got coming up that do one or a combination of those things in different ways, using immersive technology to engage audiences in new ways. So we have a major programme of work called Green Futures, sponsored by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, which is a charitable trust in the UK that supports art and cultural activity and heritage activity focused on heritage. But their major award to us is really unique because they've decided to focus all of their support on natural heritage. So the city's parks, green spaces, what role does our natural heritage not just thinking about countryside and rainforests, but the natural heritage on your front door. What role does that play in culture and in social life for things like well-being? We've commissioned the amazing digital art collective Marshmallow Laser Feast and a series of collaborators to create this new work, Observations on Being, which takes as its subject and stage Coventry's newly formed heritage park, set in London Road Cemetery, which is a wonderful Victorian arboretum created by Joseph Paxton, often called one of the top 5 cemeteries in the country. It's beautiful, which has been combined with Charterhouse Fields, which features a 11th century monastery. So it's a beautiful natural setting, which exists just outside the city centre. And it really is a beautiful space, but it's in some ways underused. And how do we get people to appreciate it and that natural heritage? We've invited these artists to create an immersive experience that is takes that big subject of the natural world and its importance in the ecosystem, how we're all part of the natural world, and seeks to engage people emotionally, intellectually. And it does that using technologies that draw attention to the natural world. So it's not about coming to a cinema and being taken out of the world. It's about coming to this site, and it will feature 7 immersive installations through the park using spatial audio, using interactive installations in found spaces. And we'll take you through that park and hopefully leave visitors with a greater appreciation of the nature that exists all around them in their city. Positive Realities is a program that we developed with Story Futures Academy, which is the National Centre for Immersive Storytelling based out of Royal Holloway in London. And their role is to develop the immersive content production skills across the UK, as well as with Create Central, the BFI, and Positive Youth Foundation. We offered training in immersive content production to 5 regional screen SMEs and challenged them, crucially, with a challenge of how they might work with groups of young people in Coventry to develop a pilot project in either AR or VR that had a positive impact on young people's self-esteem and well-being. We know that when thinking about immersive story form, the most likely contingent to start taking up and consuming content will be young people. They're already spending inordinate amounts of time in VR, for example, in gaming, if you're a gamer, obviously on social media. And there's been a huge amount of research that immersive story form has huge potential for perception change. It is incredibly emotive, but at the same time, there's these contradictions in well-being, amount of time spent versus the potential it has. So we've challenged these companies to come up with projects with young people, and we'll be announcing the winner next week, which is incredibly exciting, an AR project that seeks to transform the way young people in Coventry think about the places where they live. And finally, as part of our major commissioning program with Unlimited and the Space, Unlimited are arts commissioning body that work with deaf, disabled and neurodiverse artists, and the Space, who are a digital commissioning agency. We've commissioned a very well established comic book artist, Al Davison, who's world renowned for his comic book work. He's been working on a 25-year-long project called Muscle Memory, which describes his experiences over his lifetime of being physically disabled and the different challenges he's had, how he copes with his memories, how he copes with it through his art and creativity and through activities like martial arts. It's a really wonderful and massive project, really, truly massive. And we're going to work with him to think about how he could take chapters from this massive project to new audiences digitally, and how we might take some of this quite challenging storytelling to audiences in new ways. So thinking about what might the role in his kind of visual graphic storytelling be for new techniques like binaural audio, for example, which we know is incredibly emotionally powerful. So I look forward to working with Al over this year, and we'll be publishing his project in January next year. I hope that's a whistle-stop tour of some of the work we've got going on over the next 12 months, but I'm happy to answer more questions.
Thanks, Tony. Do you think these new tools like VR, XR, AR are good to engage people? And do you see a new tendency, some new tools who are coming also?
Sorry, I didn't quite understand the question.
Do you think these new tools like ER, VR are good to engage people? And could you see some new tools between that?
What's really exciting about immersive story form is, well, it's two things. That it's the fact that it can completely transform your sense of where you are and how you're engaging with the content itself. So often you're presenting a story and it seems very much separate to you. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting, you can put people in the shoes of other people into other worlds, and that has incredible emotional power when you're trying to communicate storytelling, and when you're trying to create a sense of empathy, for example. There's a huge amount of research around immersive and empathy. But as I said, in terms of audiences, what's going to be really exciting over the next 10 years is when immersive story form and the internet combine, and you're able to create content, immersive content that can reach people globally, wherever they are.
Yeah. So thanks, all of you. If you have some question, I have to check. So yes, I've got a question. A question for everybody. How has the COVID situation influenced the conception of your future hybrid projects? It's a COVID question.
May
so
I
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Massively. So in the first day of the COVID pandemic, we came up with the idea to build a platform we called at that time the Museum of Crisis. And we wanted to create something where people could share their crisis experiences as a kind of rapid response platform. And it was a pretty complex thing. And it wasn't manageable at the time, but we came up with a big research project one of my colleagues is pursuing now. It's called the Museum X.0. And there they are building now a huge platform which enables participatory interactions with users in accordance with our general concepts and rapid response settings. And we have a huge design thinking process running at the moment. It's closing end of June to create something we call a club, a museum club, where you can share also courses and knowledge, and it's kind of a museum academy as a one module and feature within this platform approach. So that was one of the outcomes of the Corona pandemic, and it's still going on and will be a huge topic in the museum in the future. Absolutely, so massive impact.
Camilla, you want to add something?
I think that it's helped to underline the potential for engagement of broader audiences, because it's forced us to think about how we overcome the difficulty of connecting with our audiences when our sites are closed, for example. Obviously, there are specifics about how we've dealt with restrictions while the buildings have been open. But in a way, some of those are slightly less interesting. But I think some of those things were being explored anyway. And what it's helped to reveal is the fact that aside from the pandemic, there are often things that constrain people in their ability to engage with things on site or physically. And so I think that it's underlying learnings that associated with the pandemic, but not even specific to it, about how we can engage much more broadly by thinking about how we use digital as a form of delivery and engagement.
Okay. Tony, you want to also?
I think in some ways there's a huge opportunity to grasp has been highlighted when audiences haven't been able to come into theatres and museums and venues. Of course, people are dying to go back and we're dying to have them back. However, not just seeing digital as a means of getting them when we can't physically welcome them in, but actually what are the creative opportunities? Everyone's just spent a huge amount of time walking along canals, in their parks, changing their daily behaviors. And what does that mean? What does that mean for content? How can you create there's been some wonderful efforts at creating podcast series for your daily walk. I think there's creative opportunities about thinking about this new way we're living. Everyone, I think, is agreed that we want to change up our daily routines. What does that mean when you're trying to engage people with content?
Okay, I've got just one quick question also for both of you, but do you think in museum, the current teams are enough or well trained for this innovation? Johannes?
It depends. It depends. It's, I think, an ongoing process that has been massively catalyzed by the current situation. So actually, today in the afternoon, we are having a huge session in our museum to talk about exactly these questions. And so there's a lot of debate going on. And I think the crisis situation has catalyzed a lot of change and transformation processes immensely. So you have to take a close look. I think it wouldn't be wise to work here with generalizations. You have to look really closely what is going on to get a grasp and to work with the processes that are going on.
Okay. I'm going to jump in and make a generalization. But I think it's maybe useful just for a counterpoint. I do think, my experience, and I'm quite critical of this, most organizations in the arts are structured for the previous paradigm or age, not the digital age. And that's often very rigid. It's often divisions between departments. This isn't always the case. And actually the culture of digital is one of collaboration between all specialisms. And that's often hindered by the structures in arts organizations, curatorial over here, digital over there, visitor experience over there. And actually the opportunities of these new technologies, platforms, distribution methods, etc., is that it permeates everything and requires all skill sets. And often I think it's the organizational structure which is standing in the way.
Okay, good. So thanks, everyone. I hope that this session was able to enlighten you on these subjects. And again, I'd like to thank our speakers. So now if you have any question to ask directly to our speaker, do it in the private Zoom room. Thanks, and stay online, stay tuned for all of the conference during this Museum Connection event. Thanks everyone, thanks to the organization, and see you soon.